I've picked up a few new iPad accessories and rotated around some others. This video is sponsored by Ugreen. Let's get into it. First up is the CalDigit TS4 dock. Now, this isn't a new device by any means. I've actually been using the OWC Thunderbolt dock for a few years now, ever since, well, the iPad got Thunderbolt support. But I've been having a few minor issues with it, but there is one thing in particular about the OWC dock that just bugs me, and it finally kind of broke me to the point where I was like, okay, I am replacing this thing. The OWC Thunderbolt dock actually has the port that goes from the dock to the computer on the front side and in the middle of it. This makes it extremely difficult to do proper cable management of it. Now, with the way my desk is laid out, I had the Thunderbolt dock in the shelf spot of the Ugmonk Gather. This meant that the Thunderbolt cable was actually coming out and was draping over my keyboard and then going back in. So it was getting in the way of me typing all the time. So after kind of hemming and hawing over it, I finally pulled the trigger and got the CalDigit Thunderbolt 4 dock. Now, what I like about this is the port that goes from the computer to the dock is on the back side of this. But on top of that, this actually has an array of ports that are a bit more useful to me. So it has 3 Thunderbolt ports, but one of them is just used to go from the dock to the computer. So really it only has 2 usable Thunderbolt ports. It has 3 regular USB-C ports. One of them is on the back, and then 2 of them are on the front. All 3 of these regular USB-C ports, not the Thunderbolt ones, are USB 3.2 Gen 2s. That means they do the 10 gigabit per second data transfer. It also has a display port for those that have DisplayPort monitors, but I use a studio display, so I use one of the Thunderbolt ports for that. It has 5 USB-A ports, 4 on the back and 1 on the front. Perfect for charging. It also has multiple 3.5mm headphone jacks, so you can plug in something like speakers in the back and headphones in the front. Kind of like a mullet. It also has an SD card and micro SD card reader on the front, but my personal favorite out of all the ports that are on this thing, the Ethernet port is 2.5 gigabits per second. Not 1 gigabit, 2.5, which I recently just updated all the networking gear in my house. So at a minimum, everything is 2.5 gigabits per second, and I have a couple of 10 gigabit per second ports. Now, this in particular really helps with connection to my NAS. I move a lot of big video files around from my iPad to my NAS, and this helps speed that up quite a bit. Now, this dock covers all the accessories I plugged in. Like I mentioned, I use a studio display, so I can plug that into the Thunderbolt dock, USB-A for mechanical keyboards and webcam, USB-C to plug in my CF Express card reader, and even plugging in a MagSafe puck to just one of the regular USB-C ports, so I don't have to worry about having an extra outlet at my desk for that. I can just plug it in right to the dock. Plus, the SD card reader is so nice for my photography work. I absolutely love this thing, but it is incredibly pricey. But I do love it. This helped me get my desk completely cleaned up to the point where you don't see cables on my desk. It gave me a fast wired internet connection, plus has a ton of ports on the front so I can plug in devices that need to be charged or external storage drives. This has been a great device for just unifying everything. Before I had the OWC dock, and then I would plug some stuff into the studio display, but then I ran out of ports on there, so I got a USB-C hub that plugged into the back of the studio display that gave me 4 more ports. It was just kind of a mess because everything was all over the place. With this, everything gets plugged in here, and then my iPad gets plugged into this. This video is sponsored by Ugreen. These are the Ugreen Nexode Power Banks. They are portable battery packs, so you can charge your devices from anywhere. They are light and compact, so they don't take up a bunch of space in your bag or add a ton of different weight. The smaller 100-watt version has a 12,000 milliamp hour battery. This one has 1 USB-C port and 1 USB-A port and is the perfect size for small bags. Then there is the 130-watt version with a 20,000 milliamp hour battery. This has 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port, and really useful for charging bigger devices. And the 130-watt one can charge an iPhone 15 up to 4 times. They both support Power Delivery 3.0 charging, meaning they can output 100 watts of max power to one device. This means you can get an iPhone 15 charged to 55% in just 30 minutes, or a 16-inch MacBook Pro to 43% in the same amount of time. Both power banks have intelligent displays that not only show you how much battery life is left, but also show you the rate at which devices are being charged. They are both airline approved as well, meaning you can take them with you to charge up your iPad or any other devices you might be using on a plane. Personally, I use these for all sorts of things, not just when I'm traveling. I use them when I'm sitting on the couch because we have this weird open living room layout where there's like no outlets around our couch, so I can't really charge my iPad or Switch or anything like that. These are incredibly useful products, and I'll put links to them in the description below, so be sure to go check them out. My thanks to Ugreen for sponsoring this video. One of the few magnetic iPad stands on the market right now for the new M4 iPad Pros are the Lulu Look iPad stands. Because the M4 iPad Pros got a redesign, the magnets got shifted around. So the old iPad stands that used to work with the M1s and M2 iPad Pros, well, they don't work with the new M4 ones. So all those magnetic iPad stands had to get redesigned. Now, full disclosure, Lulu Look did send me these to check out. Disclosure, it's the right thing to do. Now, what I like about magnetic iPad stands in general is that they don't take up a bunch of space on your desk. You don't have to worry about having a spot for the Magic Keyboard or anything like that. They just magnetically attach and stand up. Plus, most of them allow you to put the iPad in portrait mode, which is something I like when working at my desk. Now, specifically with the Lulu Look iPad stands, there are two different versions. There is this regular one here, and then there is this one right here that has the smart connector built into it. Now, on the back side of this, you can see there is a USB-C spot. So you can plug a USB-C cable into it so the iPad can actually charge via the smart connector. I use the normal one because this sits on my desk, and like I talked about, I have a cable going from the CalDigit dock, which has my monitor and everything plugged into it, and I just plug it right into my iPad. Now, I use this in portrait mode, so what I do is I actually flip it upside down so that the camera is down here at the bottom, and that the cable just comes up right up top and plugs in. Makes it really easy to just unplug it and pull it off and stuff like that when I need to go. Now, both of these can rotate in a 360-degree manner. They have a ratcheting mechanism. And the iPad portion too can also rotate 360 degrees as well. They can also tilt and fold up as well. So there's a lot of degrees of adjustability with these. Now, these are both a great option. If you're like me and you're working from a monitor and you just want to have your iPad off to the side so you can see your widgets or reference an app or whatever like that, but you're working primarily from the external monitor. It's great for that. Or if you want to build up like a charging station for your iPad, you can get something like the Smart Connector one and plug it in there. Now, if you're looking for something that may be a little less iPad specific, say you jump between your iPad and a MacBook or at a laptop or whatever, and you just want something that you can jump around between, I would take a look at this guy. This is the B-Sign, I think, LSX6. Just rolls right off the tongue. This right here is a laptop stand with a ton of adjustability. Specifically, it telescopes. So you can loosen the screw right on the back. It gets really high up. In fact, I don't even use it at its full height. It goes from about 9.5 inches to 14.75 inches. So this laptop stand, in combination with the iPad and the Magic Keyboard, it gets the iPad to the perfect height with my studio display. So it's up high and I can reference everything. This is the tallest laptop stand I could find. So you shouldn't have an issue with ergonomics and getting your iPad up to a proper height. My big issue with this, as opposed to something like the magnetic iPad stands, is because you have the keyboard attached, it's a lot wider. It takes up a lot more space on your desk. And personally, when I'm working at my iPad with an external display, I like to have it in portrait mode because like I'll just keep documents open or the widgets or like the music app or something that I just want to reference over to the side. I like that stuff in portrait mode. And then I have my external monitor, obviously in landscape mode. With this, you can't put your iPad in portrait mode, obviously. But this does do a great job at keeping everything at eye level and there's no like weird height differences. If you're going to be productive on an iPad, you're probably going to need a hardware keyboard. Software keyboard is fine for quick entries, but if you're typing long emails, documents, whatever, everyone types faster on a hardware keyboard. The Magic Keyboard is nice, and that's what I use when I'm on the go, if I'm working in here or am on the couch or out of the office, traveling, whatever. That's typically what I use. But when I sit down at my desk, I want a mechanical keyboard. I want something that has good feedback, sounds good, nice quality, and, customizable. Now, I might have a small army of mechanical keyboards, but I do have some favorites. I really like my 2-mode keyboards. I've talked a lot about beginner mechanical keyboards in the past, and these are not that. If you're looking for a beginner mechanical keyboard, I would go check out Keychron. You can get some of their keyboards in what they call the bare bones version, so you can put your own switches and keycaps on there. That's a great way to learn about mechanical keyboards. But with Mode, you assemble everything yourself, including the casing, the PCB board, doing modifications. You do everything yourself. Now, they give you really good tools and some pretty decent instructions. And my piece of advice would be, before you order anything, look through their instructions and see if it's something that you could handle, because these aren't cheap. I've never pretended mechanical keyboards are a cheap alternative to keyboards at all, but a proper mechanical keyboard can run you anywhere from $100 to a couple $100 to, honestly, I have one that I'm kind of embarrassed to say how much money I've invested in it, because it's a lot. And before we get into all the other details, my other piece of advice, if you're going to order something like this, get what is called the hot swappable PCB board. This means you just push the mechanical keyboard switches in. You're not soldering anything. One, this is a lot easier and a lot more beginner friendly than soldering. Soldering is not terribly hard, but it's not... If you've never done it before, it can be a little daunting. But the nice thing about hot swappable is if you ever decide, oh, you know what, I don't like the feel of these switches anymore, you can just pull them out and you don't have to sit there and try and undo all of your soldering. Now, when it comes to working in my office, I usually jump between my 2-mode keyboards. I have the Mode 80, which is now a discontinued keyboard, but they do have a new 80 version. I want to get it one of these days. But this right here is the Mode Envoy. This is their 65% keyboard. With these Mode keyboards, you need to bring your own mechanical keyboard switches and your own keycaps. They have some versions you can buy on their website, but do some research and figure out what works for you. These have the Matrix Lab FFF linear switches, Durock V2 stabilizers. I put a tape mod on the PCB board to kind of help muffle the sounds and get it to exactly the way I wanted it, and the terminal keycaps. I love the way this looks. It's a black case with a multicolor accent piece. It sounds amazing. If I could pat myself on the back for a second, I work really hard to get my mechanical keyboards to sound exactly the way I want them to, and you can do this through a lot of different modifications. It's also really heavy, but it feels really good to type on. Now, all of Mode stuff is incredibly high quality. I've never seen or heard any issues with any of their stuff. So if you're looking to kind of take that next step in mechanical keyboards, this is the best place to look. It's not really super beginner friendly, but if you've modded hardware and stuff like that before, I'm sure you're going to be able to figure it out. And like I said, they have really good instructions. Ever since emulators came to the iPhone and iPad, I have been looking for the perfect controller setup for my iPad. I really wanted to turn my iPad into like a Nintendo Switch-like device, to where, you have the controllers on the side and you have the screen in the center. Now, there are a ton of controllers like that for the iPhone and basically all the iPads up to the 11-inch. Problem is I use a 13-inch iPad Pro, and there are no options for that. Now, my friend Federico Vitici, he got a GameSir G8 controller and modified it to fit his 13-inch iPad Pro a while ago. He did a really good article about it that I'll link to it in the description below, along with everything else I mentioned. But I went looking around for other modifications and other controllers and stuff like that. And I actually found something on Etsy for that same controller, the GameSir G8 controller. But what was really nice about it is this person was printing a 3D case for that controller. So this way you didn't have exposed springs or anything like that. Now, a word of warning. If you do this modification for this controller, there is no going back. You have to rip some rubber parts off. You're going to be taking it apart. And when you do take it apart, there is this one ribbon cable that you need to be very careful about, because it is super easy to break. So when you open it up, be very cautious. But that all being said, it feels really good. You pull it apart and you can slide the iPad in, and then you have your controller. The controller feels really good in your hand, and you have the kind of standard Xbox-ish controller, A, B, X, Y, analog sticks, triggers, buttons. Feels good. It honestly just feels like I'm playing a giant Switch. It works with native games, emulators, and even cloud gaming services. Now, This just stays at home. It is way too big to travel with, but it is really fun to just sit on the couch and play this if I'm playing an emulator or a native iOS game or something like that. But the other controller I've been using is the 8-Bit Do Lite 2. This is just a standard Bluetooth controller, no modifying needed. It pairs right with your iPad or even your iPhone. In fact, it can pair with up to 2 different devices. So I have it paired with both my iPhone and my iPad. It has 2 analog sticks and a D-pad, perfect for playing emulator games. The controller also has 2 triggers and 2 buttons, both for left and right. It also charges via USB-C. Now this right here lives in my backpack. I just took it out of my backpack to film this video. As soon as I'm done, it's going right back in there. I did a bunch of traveling this summer, and this thing came in handy so much. When I had to kill some time in a hotel room or something, I could take this out, play some games, and put it right back when I was done. The next accessory is the B Station from Synology. They sent me this a while ago to try out. What this is a network drive. I love Synology's full NAS. I have a 5-bay NAS of theirs. I absolutely love it. All my photo library gets backed up to that. My video projects, comfort zone, everything I work on gets backed up to that. I use that thing for everything. But that takes a little bit of knowledge to get set up properly. I have 9 years of experience in IT. My last job when I left the IT field was network admin. So building NASs is something I know how to do. The nice thing about this B Station though, it is a much easier setup. It walks you through everything and you don't need to know about IP addresses, port forwarding, routing, any of that stuff. This is perfect for backing up like your photo library and files too. There is a 4 terabyte drive inside it. But here's the kicker. There's only one drive. This is not a RAID. This is a network attached storage, yes, but it does not have a RAID built into it. So the drive inside it is not getting backed up. So if the drive fails, everything's gone. So this is not a place you want to just store single copies of your stuff. So you don't want this to be like the only copy of your photo library to be here. Like have it on your phone in iCloud, but also have it here on the B Station. This is really just meant to be a backup source, not the actual copy of all of your data. It has apps for file management, so even when you're out of the house, you can still access your data. So if there's like a particular file or something you need, you can download it right to your phone or iPad, even when you're not home. You can even browse it via files. You just add this app to the Files app, and you can browse the directory right from Files. Plus, there's an app for automatically backing up your photo library. It gets access to the Photos app, and it just backs everything up in the background. Now, this is perfect for people that want a network-attached storage drive, but don't want to deal with the hassle of a RAID or something more complicated like the full Synology NAS. This is great for somebody that just wants to plug something in, walk through a couple of prompts that's very straightforward, and get going. My only wish, and this has nothing to do with Synology, is that iPadOS actually had Time Machine so I could do a proper backup to this. This would be the perfect device for that. All right, the last item I want to talk about isn't really a specific product. It's more of a confession. I owe you all an apology. So external drive support came to Final Cut a little bit ago, and I swore I would never, ever use it. When I was in film school, we were editing this big documentary for a client, and we had one file, one video clip on an external drive, and we went to export it. But before we went to export it, the person that owned that drive needed to go home and unplugged it without us knowing and left. Now, it's kind of on us that we didn't copy that file over, but we were in a rush. It was like a last-minute clip that we got. So we exported it, and this was in the days of Final Cut Pro 7. So we exported it from Final Cut. We deliver it to the client, and it's at this like fancy dinner that we were invited to because we wanted to see our work and stuff. So we're sitting there, and then all of a sudden we see that red screen. And if you've ever edited in Final Cut Pro 7, you know what red screen I'm talking about. We all died a little bit. And that day I swore I would never use external drive to edit from again. But I've been doing a ton of different video projects lately. I'm juggling a bunch of stuff. It's just that time of year where I'm juggling a bunch of stuff. And I ran out of space on my iPad. So I have been editing Comfort Zone right off external drives. I've been using the Samsung T7 drives. There's a ton of different options out there. I really like the OWC one and the CalDigit one. They're both really good. I have some of those as well. But I've been using the Samsung T7s because they're very fast. And I don't notice much of a difference when editing from them. Now, the thing you want to keep in mind when you are getting an external drive, especially if you're going to be doing something with like large file sizes like video clips and stuff like that, is you want to make sure it is USB-C 3.2 2x1. This is the full 10 gigabits per second USB-C spec. That is the fastest that is supported on the iPad currently for USB-C. Thunderbolt aside, like you can get Thunderbolt drives and stuff like that, but USB-C, that is the fastest that is supported. If you're going to go down the Thunderbolt drive route, prepare to spend a lot of money. Now, there is USB-C 2x2, but that's not supported on the iPad yet. I plan on editing on internal storage forever. I don't plan on changing that, but it is nice to have that option when I do run out of space that I can jump to this other thing. But like the magic of the M series chip is the fact that everything is on the chip, the CPU, the GPU, the memory, and the storage, which makes it incredibly fast. That is the magic of that M series chip. So when you start using external drives, that's when you kind of start to lose some of that magic. But it is a decent alternative, especially when paired with like that CalDigit dock I talked about at the top of that video. I can just plug the external drive right into the front of it, have it sit there while I do my edit, and unplug it and put it back in my drawer when I'm done. So those are the current iPad accessories I am using. I want to hear from you all. What is your favorite iPad accessory right now? Let me know in the comments below. My thanks to Ugreen for sponsoring this video. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and have a great day.